Hey there everybody, welcome to Auto Bears, and this is the World Car of the Year 2025, the Kia EV3. Now, you'd have to be living on a completely different planet to not know that Hyundai Group are absolutely killing it when it comes to their electric vehicles, regardless of which brand you look at. Now, the EV3 is Kia's 5th electric car, following the Soul, the e-Niro, the EV6 and the giant 6 or 7-seater EV9. But that's not it for 2025. Oh no, they've still got the EV4 and EV5 due out later this year. However, it's the EV3 that's gotten the accolade, World Car of the Year 2025. And I've had this EV3 for a week and I'm going to answer one big question. Is it really that good? Well, stick with me to find out. Now, when it comes to the EV3 styling, I think once again we've got to take our hats off to the Kia design team, because I think this is another winner. But it is a bit of a Marmite car. There have been some mixed reactions to friends of mine when they've seen the EV3. Some of them really love the distinctive shape. Others think it's a little bit too awkward, but you let me know in the comments section below. Now, in regards to the rest of the EV lineup, this definitely feels more closely related to the larger EV9 than it does the EV6, but we have seen that as well with the upcoming EV4 and 5, where we have got the styling traits like the star map daytime running lights with the integrated headlight cluster, which is mirrored at the back of the car with those distinctive tail lights. Now, with the EV3, I actually really like it in profile. It has got a bit of a boxy look to it, and every time I see pictures of it, it does feel quite deceptive. I think it's going to be larger than what the car actually is, because it is a kind of small-ish family SUV, which means it is in a hugely competitive segment, including the likes of the Peugeot E2008 and the BYD Atto 3. But what I love as well with this GT line is that we have got the large 19-inch alloy wheels, and they're very easy to clean as well. I do love the fact that the door handle for the rear passenger doors is kind of integrated into that C-pillar, and just overall it's just a really distinctive looking electric vehicle. Other things I love as well about it is the shale grey metallic paint, which really does work in contrast to all the little black highlights featured around the car. Now, granted, yes, there are other paint colours available, and I will mention one later on, because when it comes to kind of pricing, yeah, with this type of car, you want to try and keep it under £40,000. And as you probably saw a little bit earlier, yeah, this is just a little smidge over. But you let me know what you think of the EV3 styling in the comments section below. Do you think Kia are onto another winner, or perhaps is it a bit too outlandish for your taste? You let me know. But personally, I think Kia have done an amazing job with the styling. It is called Opposites United. That's what Kia call it, which essentially means we're going to throw loads of geometric shapes into it and give a really bold and quirky design. And I really like it, and I do think Kia have pulled it off once again. But like I said, let me know in the comments section below. And on that note, I think it's time that we leave the exterior of the EV3 and we see what it's like on the inside. Sat in the front of the EV3, you are greeted with a really comfortable, spacious and well-equipped interior, and I really do like the design in here as well. Kia do say they are going for a kind of relaxing lounge effect with its interior design, and I do believe them, because I have done a couple of long journeys in the EV3 and this is a really comfortable and relaxing place to be. Now, when it comes to getting in and out of the EV3, it's actually really easy because of that slightly raised seated position, and the doors open nice and wide. So if you do suffer from any kind of mobility issues, then I do recommend having a look at the EV3, but I will mention that you don't have a grab handle for the driver, but you do for the front passenger. And then once you're sat in these seats, you find that they are incredibly comfortable. They do have a quite buckety look to them, so you do get the impression that they're going to be very supportive, and they do hold a big bear like me in place. I will mention that they are kind of leatherette or synthetic leather, but they are actually of a really lovely quality, and it is very comfortable. And then with this GT Line trim, I have got electric adjustment in the driver's seat, along with electrically adjustable lumbar support, but I will mention that the front passenger seat is manual adjustment only. And then with the steering, I have got both rake and reach adjustment, so getting the perfect driving position is easy. But if I had one little tiny negative with the seats, is that I'd like to see some shoulder support a little bit higher up, but other than that, no, they're absolutely lovely. And I do love the fact that we've got these cloth headrests, which are also very lovely as well, and they're actually kind of fabric, so they are ventilated, so it keeps the back of your head cool if you are resting your head against them. And then when it comes to interior quality, I'm actually going to say it's pretty good. Now, like a lot of manufacturers, when it comes to the materials for the interior on your electric vehicle, yeah, we do see a lot of recycled plastics in that, and we do see that in the EV3. So as I mentioned, we have got synthetic kind of leather with the seats. We have got harder plastic on top of the dash, but a little bit lower down, we have got this cloth here, which is actually soft, so that's recycled plastics there. We've also got them here on top of the door, or I should say soft plastic here on top of the door, and it is one panel as well. We have got a little bit lower down some harder scratchy plastics, but they do feel pretty sturdy and should stand the test of time. And then we've got some more leatherette here on the armrest, and we have got a kind of unique recycled plastic here just underneath it, and I will go on about that in a little bit. And then we got some little kind of satin effect trim here to kind of replicate metal, just to liven up the cabin. And we've also got some interior mood lighting as well. So when it comes to kind of being sat here in the front of the EV3, yeah, it's just a really lovely, comfortable place to be. It's a joy to actually sit in here. Cubby spaces are actually pretty good in here, but firstly, the door pockets are of a decent size and shape. You can just about get a large bottle of drink in there, but they're not lined with any fabric, so loose items will rattle around a bit. Now here on this kind of lower down open tray area up front, we have got this rubberized pad, which is your wireless charging pad, and you have got a bit of space on either side where perhaps you could put some loose change or maybe your key there. But what I do like is that when there is a phone in place, on the right hand side or the driver's side, there is a little light there to let you know that it is charging. I will mention just up ahead we have got your two USB-C charging inputs and a 12-volt socket. Now a little bit behind there we have got your two cup holders, but like other Hyundai Group cars, you can actually fold them away to unveil a bit of kind of extra useful space there if you haven't got any drinks that you need holding. But at a push of a couple of buttons, they do open up, and you get a couple of plastic grippers as well, so that is very handy. Then just behind there we have got a large open area which is rubber lined, perfect for perhaps a handbag or a purse or any larger items you just want to kind of keep tucked out of the way. And then on top where the armrest is, we have got this little tray area which does extend forward and lock into place, and what you can do is lift up the armrest, and you've got this kind of, I don't know, like little kind of table area, which is perfect if perhaps you're charging the car and you want to have a little look at your phone or iPad, maybe even put a laptop there as well if you need to work. But with the kind of look at the plastic, I do get chopping board vibes from it. And I was going to, for the demonstration of this video, kind of put an onion there and start cutting it. However, I don't think you want to see me in tears. Granted, yes, I could probably pick another vegetable. But that is actually quite unique, and there are some physical buttons at the front of it here as well. But I would like to see something perhaps done at the back here, maybe an additional storage space, or something just a little bit quirky. And then finally we have got the glove box, which is of a decent size and shape. Again, it's not lined with any fabric or rubber, but the book pack is starting to get a little bit smaller now compared to what we've seen on previous Hyundai Group models. So yeah, when it comes to kind of cubby spaces here in the EV3, they are actually very decent and quite quirky as well. Now, even though this is a ground-up electric vehicle, Kia have not yet gone the way of having all the main controls done via the main infotainment system. There's actually a really nice mixture of physical, touch-sensitive and infotainment controls. So when it comes to those kind of physical controls here on the center armrest, as I mentioned, we've got 4 buttons here which do your hill descent control. They activate your parking sensors and your camera, and also your auto hold. Now here on the main dash, we have got these touch sensitive buttons here, which are your shortcut buttons for the infotainment system. We've got a physical rocker switch here for the volume control, which is, I think, very handy. A big hazard light there in the center, but we've also got these little rocker switches for the dual zone climate control. Now, we first saw these in the EV9, and I do think they are a brilliant idea because those are the main controls you're going to want to use. Temperature, fan direction, fan strength, and also your front passengers' temperature as well. So that I really do like. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, lower down, we have got your 2 USB-C charging inputs and 12-volt socket. I do like the way the 12-volt socket is kind of hidden away there. But there's also a button in there, so you can go from using the USB-C as a charger, as well as connecting to things like Apple CarPlay, or just having it as a dedicated charger. So that is quite quirky. And then here on the steering wheel, what we've got on the left hand side is your radar guided cruise controls, along with the menu controls for the driver data display. And then in the center, lower down of the steering wheel, we have got your drive mode select. And then on the right hand side, we've got your media, voice and communication controls. And then what I do like is that we have got a couple of flappy pedals on the back of the steering wheel to do your regen braking. We have got the big gear selector stalk sticking out of the steering column. But what I also like as well is that the actual on-off switch is integrated into that stalk. So that is actually very quirky. And then on the right-hand side, it does mean we just got 2 buttons here, one for the electric handbrake and the other for your traction control. And yes, on the right-hand side, then we've got your final buttons there to operate the windows and the mirrors. But I will mention here on the door, we have got your heated steering wheel and heated seat controls. And I have got them there as well for the front passenger. So yeah, when it comes to the kind of design and the physical touch sensitive buttons in here, they're really nicely laid out, and ergonomically, yeah, it is very sound. It does mean that everything's where you'd expect it to be. And I do love the kind of rocker controls for the dual zone climate control. And then finally, we've got the infotainment system and the digital dashboard display, both 12.3 inches. But we've also now got your climate control display in the center, and that's 5.3 inches. And we first saw this configuration last year with the EV9. So starting with the main infotainment system, as I said, it's 12.3 inches. You have got things like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. They are wireless as well. And when it comes to the display, it is actually really lovely. I do love the kind of clarity and the animations and slickness when you go through the menus. It's very easy to read as well, and it is actually very responsive. I would say, however, that when you go into the sub menus, it does become a little bit fiddly to kind of navigate them, so I would recommend it being a case of setup before you set off. But one of the other highlights as well is when you put the car in reverse and have the reversing camera engaged, it is a really lovely, crisp, clear screen. I would say it does get a little bit noisy at night, but it's not going to cause any issues. But during the day, it is a real highlight. I have, however, got 2 niggles about it. Now, the first one is that it is flat against the dash, and I'd love to see it kind of turned towards the driver so it feels a little bit more driver-centric. And the second one is something that I've kind of come across, but you might not. So I'm just kind of doing it as an FYI. But when I'm navigating the menus, I tend to kind of lean my fingers here and rest them on this bit of fabric trim. And what I found is as I'm going through the menus, a stray thumb or finger just brushes against the shortcut buttons, which are touch sensitive. And I do that accidentally. So as I'm kind of going through one of the menus, all of a sudden the maps appear on screen, or perhaps it goes to like the main setup page. So that's just something to be aware of. But for the most part, it's been an absolutely brilliant system to use. And then in the center, as I mentioned, we've got a 5.3-inch touchscreen display, and this is for your climate control. If you need to kind of go into the more nitty-gritty features rather than just using the main rocker switches. So things like having it as driver only, or if you want to recirculate the air, for example. So that's kind of just tucked out the way because it is behind the steering wheel when you're driving. So again, yeah, you're probably going to look to set that up before you set off. And then finally, we got the digital driver display, again 12.3 inches, and it is very much what we've come to see from Hyundai Group cars. The animations are really lovely, and using the buttons and the little wheel on the left-hand side of the steering wheel, you can navigate all the driver data menus, and it is really easy to use, and even when you're on the move. So yeah, in terms of the kind of main infotainment systems and displays, they are really lovely, crisp and clear. The only thing I would say in regards to the infotainment system is that it could be very much prone to fingerprints and smudges, so just be aware of that. But overall, it's a really lovely system to use. And yeah, that's something we've kind of become used to with Hyundai Group cars. So yeah, once you're sat here in the front of the EV3, it is very spacious, very comfortable. It feels like a very relaxing place to be, especially with things like the two-tone colours here on the seats as well as on the steering wheel. I do love the fact we got the new steering wheel with the offset Kia badge, so it does feel very light and airy in here. And on that note, I think it's time that we leave the front seats of the EV3 and we see what it's like for rear passengers. Sat in the back of the EV3, it's actually surprisingly spacious and comfortable back here, and I could easily imagine myself doing a medium or possibly long distance journey and arriving at my destination feeling refreshed and relaxed. Now when it comes to getting in and out of the back of the EV3, it is actually really easy because the doors open nice and wide. You have got that slightly raised seated position, and also you've got a couple of grab handles to assist you getting in and out. So that is actually very handy. And then that driver's seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide, and as you can see, I've got a good amount of knee room. I can just about tuck my feet underneath the driver's seat, and that is in its lowest setting. And also headroom is not too bad thanks to that boxy design. But I do think a couple of 6-footers might be sat back here, and they might feel a little bit kind of cramped and claustrophobic because it is a little bit dark back here because we haven't got a sunroof, and we have also got the dark headlining. I don't think you could get 3 adults back here at a push, unless they are, of course, a lot slimmer than myself, but you could easily get 3 kids back here. Now, speaking of kids, we've got ISOFIX supports on the outer seats, and they are easy to navigate because the bars are actually nice and open and exposed, so it'll be very easy to affix a child's seat. And then when it comes to cubby spaces, it's actually pretty good. We've got some decent sized door pockets. Again, you can get a medium, possibly large size bottle of drink in there at a push. And then we have got your aeroplane style pockets on the backs of the front seats. We have got a very deep tray area, which is perfect for your mobile phone if you are wanting to charge it up. And then we have got an armrest here with a couple of extra cup holders, which is very handy. And I do like actually the kind of level that sits at. And then when it comes to features, we have got 2 USB-C charging inputs here on the sides of the seats. We've got a couple of little vents as well to direct the air. However, we haven't got air conditioning back here. And that's about it. We haven't got many other features. I mean, we have got this here if you want to put a jacket or something on the back of the front seats there. And I do like the fact we got the recycled fabric as well. The windows are of a really lovely shape and size. They are tinted on this particular car, and they do open all the way down. So that is actually a nice feature there. But other than that, that's about it. We can't recline the seats, we can't move the bench forward. Only on the top of the line GT Line S do you get a 3-pin socket between the seats here and any kind of vehicle to load. So yeah, I mean, if you do want all the kind of toys and features, go for the GT Line S. But I mean, being sat back here, I like the fact that I have got USB-C charging inputs, and I have got a little tray area in order to put my phone there. So yeah, it is actually pretty good sat in the back of the EV3, but like I said, it does feel a little bit dark back here, which might not be the best for taller passengers, but It is very comfortable and it is pretty spacious as well. So on that note, I think it's time that we leave the rear seats and we see what the boot is like. Now, before I open the boot of the EV3, I just want to reassure you that there is a rear wiper on this car and it's tucked up there underneath the spoiler. So it does mean at the back of the EV3 it does have a more kind of cleaner look to it, but that is a very quirky design feature. Now, getting the boot open of the EV3 will present you with 460 litres of space, which is pretty good for this segment of car. It is a tiny bit behind the likes of the new Skoda Elroq, which is probably on paper the EV3's biggest rival. Now, when you get the boot open, you are greeted with a nice wide square load area. You could easily get a large suitcase in here, but here's a carry-on so you get an idea of scale. There's actually no boot lip to navigate over. However, the boot level is quite high, so it could be a bit difficult for dogs to jump in and out of, or if you are loading any large bulky items such as a wheelchair or mobility scooter. Now, here's the big surprise, because when it comes to features, it's not as versatile as other Hyundai Group cars. So we have got these kind of unique tethering hooks there, but they're not your traditional ones, perhaps if you've got some netting with the car. We haven't got a 12-volt socket. We have got a little shopping hook here on the side. We have got a variable boot floor as well, so we can lower it down. Two little additional spaces on the edges of the boot area, and if we wanted to as well, we can keep the boot up high and then we can put some items underneath the boot floor. But surprisingly, you can't put the tonneau cover underneath the boot floor, so if you do want to load any large bulky items into the back of your EV3, yeah, you're going to need to leave that tonneau cover at home, and that is a genuine surprise. However, one thing I do like is that when you do put the seats down, you have a pretty much completely flat load area, so that is one highlight to the EV3. But yeah, it just kind of feels a little bit surprising that it is lacking some of the features that we've come to kind of know and love on other Hyundai Group cars. But like I said, when it comes to boot capacity, it is pretty much the norm for this segment of car. And yeah, it should be able to handle a week's shopping with no hassle whatsoever, or a few weekend bags. But you know what, on that note, I think it's time we get the boot down on this EV3 and we see what this World Car of the Year is like out on the road. So once you start driving the EV3, first impressions are incredible. Now, when I got the car delivered to me, I did actually take the driver to the train station. I always try and help out the manufacturers that way, and I was gobsmacked at just how comfortable, how easy the car is to drive, and just how well it rides. It really is that impressive. And when it comes to visibility, for the most part, it is actually very good as well. So because this is a kind of B segment crossover, you have got that slightly raised seated position. So I got a wonderful commanding view of the road ahead. Now, because of that kind of square boxy shape, I can kind of judge where the front of the car is, because it has got a very short kind of snouty front end, so it does mean parking is a doddle in the EV3. I will mention you do get front and rear parking sensors and a reversing camera as standard. Now, the A-pillars are quite thick and chunky, but because of the way that they're raked, I've actually not found myself looking around them at any junctions. That is a real pleasant surprise, and you do get this air of spaciousness inside the car. It does feel much bigger than what it actually is. And then the wing mirrors are of a lovely shape and size. I have got blind spot monitoring, that is standard as well, but you have to go for the top of the range GT Line S in order to get the blind spot cameras. And you know I do love those cameras, but I have got the mid-spec GT Line, but I've had no issues when it comes to blind spot monitoring or when traveling on the motorway. And then when I look over my shoulder, I do find there is quite a thick C-pillar there because of that boxy design. But like I said, I've got the blind spot monitoring. And then rear visibility, I'm going to say is okay. It is a quite narrow letterbox view, and there is a bit of an obstruction from the rear headrest. So there are some rivals out there that do have better rearward visibility. But like I mentioned, you do get front and rear sensors and a reversing camera as standard. And as I mentioned earlier, the actual clarity of the camera is spot on. So yeah, once you get driving in the EV3, when it comes to the kind of ease of use, the comfort, it's just wow. This is massively impressive, and you very quickly kind of realise why this has got World Car of the Year title. Yeah, it's that good. Now, when it comes to trim levels, you've got 3 to choose from. You've got the entry-level Air, the mid-spec GT Line, which is what I've got here, and the top-of-the-range GT Line S. And it's very rare for me to say this, but start with the Air. Start with that entry-level car, because in terms of standard equipment, you really are well and truly catered for. You have got things like dual zone climate control, front and rear parking sensors, a reversing camera. You've got radar guided cruise control as well, the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Essentially, when it comes to safety and driver assistance, you've got everything that you'll want and need. And then what I'd also recommend is look at the entry-level battery, because, well, as I'll tell you in a moment, 270 miles of acclaimed range is actually very impressive. But you can go for the entry-level Air with the larger battery, and that's when you can get way over 350 miles of claimed range. So yeah, that's what I would just say. Go for the entry-level Air and work your way up. And I would say the sweet spot is actually what I've got here. It's the GT Line, but don't go for the shale grey. Stick with the sunset red, because that is the standard colour, and it will keep you under £40,000, and that means you don't pay that higher road tax bracket. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. If you really want to kind of get the most out of the car without going over 40k, get this car with the sunset red. However, just start with the Air, have a look at it, see what you think, and then just work your way up. Now, when it comes to powering the EV3, there are 2 batteries available. You've essentially got a standard range and a long range. Now, the standard range battery is only available on the Air trim, but the long range battery is available on all 3 trim levels, hence why my recommendation was to go for the Air, because you got the choice of those 2 batteries. So I'm going to put everything on screen now for you so you can compare if you are looking at an EV3. So the standard range battery is a 58.3 kilowatt hour battery. Now here's the thing, power and torque are exactly the same on both the standard range and long range batteries. So it is 201 brake horsepower and 283 Newton meters of torque, and that goes through to the front wheels. At the moment this is front wheel drive only. Not sure if we'll see a dual motor setup come in the future, but I'll be honest, I don't really think the EV3 needs it. So when it comes to performance with the standard battery, you have got a 0 to 62 time of around 7.5 seconds, and that increases to 7.7 for the larger battery because of the extra weight it has to deal with. Now, of course, this is the big number, and it's range. So with the standard battery, you do have a very impressive claimed range of up to 270 miles, which I think is actually very good. But if you were to go for example, the Air, and you get the long range battery, that increases to a claimed 375. Now, I will note that there are some adjustments if you go for the GT Line and GT Line S because of the larger alloy wheel sizes, so it does drop a little bit. But like, for example, this particular car is around 365 miles. And I have been able to get on a full charge over 300. I got around a claimed, I reckon, about 320. I did charge up before it kind of got too low, which I still think is actually very impressive. And we're not yet in kind of full summer mode yet to get full advantage of the battery. So I was impressed with that, and that was actually doing just motorway driving. I did a little drive down to Millbrook and back, so it was around 260 miles, I think, all told, and then just driving it around to work and back, I was able to get that up to kind of claimed 320 miles, which, like I said, I think is very impressive. Any car where you can actually get over 300 miles nowadays, I think is actually very good. So yeah, that's actually very impressive in the car. And what I do like as well is that even with that 7.7 seconds to 62, it just feels really nice. It suits the car really well. Like I said, I don't think this needs more performance. I don't think there needs to be a GT version of the car. But yeah, being able to get over 350 miles claimed range on a car like this in this segment for this price. Because if you go for the Air and you get the larger battery, I think it's about 36 grand. Yeah, that's astonishing value for money there. So yeah, when it comes to the batteries and the performance in the EV3, as you've just seen, it's very impressive indeed. Now, when it comes to charging and brake regeneration, as always with Hyundai Group cars, it tends to be a bit of a strong area, but it is different in the EV3. So we'll start with brake regeneration, which is always a highlight because you have got the flappy paddles on the back of the steering wheel to adjust it, and you've got your 4 levels. You've got 0, where basically you're just coasting, all the way up to number 3, which is the strongest, or you can go to I pedal, which will give you full 1 pedal driving experience. Not only that, when it comes to kind of slowing down, it will bring you to a complete stop, so that is another highlight. And there is also an auto mode as well, where basically the car will use all the sensors and cameras, and it will kind of gauge the strength of the brake regen depending on the traffic and the environment outside. So that's always a highlight in a Hyundai Group car. Now, when it comes to charging, this is where things are a little bit different. So firstly, the charging flap is actually on the driver's side or the right hand side of the vehicle, and it is up front. Usually we see it behind on the right hand side, so that is a little bit different from what we've come to see, especially on this platform. And also, we don't have the full kind of 800 volt architecture that we've seen in the EV6 and the EV9. It is actually reduced. So if you go for the standard battery with the EV3, you get a maximum charging rate of 100 kilowatts. And if you go for the long range battery, that increases to around 128 kilowatts, which is, yeah, quite far behind the kind of 350 we've come to kind of know and love from Hyundai Group cars. But it does mean, and I put it on screen now for you, when it comes to charging, it's around about half an hour to go from 10 to 80% with that long range battery, which still isn't too bad. That's just an extra 12 minutes compared to the EV6 or even the EV9. But I think the reason that Hyundai have done this is that they've done a little bit of market research and homework to see how many of their customers actually use that kind of supercharging capability of the car. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a quite small percentage. So as a result, I think what they've done is they've given you this kind of lower charging capacity, one, to kind of preserve the life of the battery, and two, because of the type of car the EV3 is, I think it will suit the lifestyle better, because I don't see this being a car that's going to be on the M1 every single day of its life, doing 400 miles, 500 miles a day. It's not that type of car. This is a small family SUV, electric SUV. So its lifestyle, I think, is going to be doing the school run, going to town and back, doing the work commute, and then doing the occasional long journey where you will take advantage of that pretty decent charging capability, where you just got to spend an extra 12 minutes at the services, have an extra cup of tea and a wee before you have to set off on your journey. And don't forget as well, with the type of range that the EV3 gives you, it's still very impressive. You're still going to get a couple extra 100 miles whilst you're having a quick snack and having a quick pop to the loo. Also, very quickly, whilst we've been talking about charging and brake regeneration, I want to quickly mention efficiency, and that has been a big positive in the EV3 as well, where I have been getting around 4 to 4.3 miles per kilowatt hour, and that's just kind of driving around town. If I am on the motorway on a longer journey, it does drop to around 3.6, 3.7, but that's still pretty impressive for this type of car. Now, something I do want to quickly mention is brake pedal feel, because this is an area where a number of manufacturers just can't seem to get it right. But with the EV3, just like other Hyundai Group cars, it's spot on. It's got a great amount of feel, it's got a confidence about it, so you know it is going to stop the car. And yeah, for everyday driving, you'll have no issues whatsoever with it. I do really like that brake pedal feel. Now, when it comes to ride and refinement in the EV3, wow. I mean, I'm driving through the little village that I come to kind of test the suspension, because this is not a smooth road, but it's dealing with the bumps and imperfections in a way I was not expecting. And don't forget, I've got the GT line, so I've got the larger 19-inch alloy wheels, but it's dealing with the bumps and imperfections and the potholes in such a manner that this is putting cars more than twice the price tag to shame. I am massively impressed by this, and now I definitely want to have a go in the Air spec, maybe even with a smaller battery, because you get 17s on that car rather than these 19s, and I'd love to see how that deals with the bumps and imperfections. That is just incredible. I was gobsmacked when I first drove this car, and just going over those little bumps, it just, I mean, you can hear them, but you can hardly feel them. And like I said, with the 19s, that is hugely impressive. This is a massive kind of leap forward for Kia in terms of ride comfort. And it's just, yeah, I am massively impressed by it. And then when we speed up to 60 miles per hour, it settles down, it still deals with the bumps really well, and it's just an absolute joy. Like I said earlier, I did a drive in this down to Bedfordshire and back in one day, and this didn't skip a beat. This was so relaxing on the motorway. And then we come to refinement, which is another huge positive. Now, the main intrusion into the car is a little bit of tyre roar. That's it. Now, granted, I can hear a little bit of wind noise off the A-pillar, but it's not that intrusive at all. Again, this is really lovely. It's so relaxing and comfortable. I will say as well, you do get a 6-speaker system with the Air and the GT line. It is actually pretty decent, but if you do love your sound, and I do, then I would recommend going for the GT Line S, because you will get a Harman Kardon sound system. But the sound system in this GT line, and it's the same as, like I said, in the Air, is still really impressive. It's got a lovely crisp sound to it. The bass is pretty decent, but it just helps out even more so when you're on the motorway, because like I said, I got a little drone from tyre roar. That's it. Yeah, this is just, it's bloody impressive is what it is. I can't believe Kia have managed to do this. Now, something I didn't mention earlier, but I thought I'd best mention it now, is in regards to the charging cable. So I have got a Type 2 cable, which is absolutely fine, and I have used it on a couple of occasions this week, but you can store it in the front. Now, you do only get 25 litres because this is a front wheel drive car, so that's where the motor is. It does take a little bit of a squeeze in that to kind of negotiate it and get it into that front, but it will go in there. And you can also, at a push, put the tyre puncture repair kit in there, so you can use the full 460 litres. And what I like as well is that Kia have changed the kind of packaging for the front, so you don't get like a dedicated lid to it. What you can see is there's a bit of soundproofing that's been moulded underneath the bonnet to kind of rest on top and keep everything in place. So yeah, I do apologise for not mentioning it earlier. I wanted to mention it now, that when it comes to the charging cable, yeah, you have got your own little dedicated spot in which to put it. So what about the EV3's handling? Well, firstly, I do love the shape and design of this new steering wheel. It's not leather, it is synthetic leather that is wrapped around it, but it does feel of a really lovely quality and feels really good in my hands. Now, I have got it in normal mode. We've got the regular drive modes to go through, plus we've got one for snow, and there is one that you can kind of customize, which is called My Drive. But for everyday driving, this is just so lovely. It's responsive. And the other thing as well, and I am going to put this into sport mode now, there's not as much lean and roll in the corners that I was expecting, especially due to how comfortable this car rides. Now, I've got it in sport mode. There's a little bit of lean, but it feels still very composed. And as well, this is a front wheel drive car, but there's a nice bit of weight there. as a BMW who's driving like an absolute loon, but this is massively impressive. And like I said, the brakes have got a really nice feel to them, so I can judge everything that I'm doing with the car and the inputs I'm putting in. But it's responsive, it's reactive. I do feel like I know what the front wheels are doing. That is another highlight, and something I wasn't expecting in this car. I mean, I usually kind of say it's perfect for everyday driving, and this is perfect. I don't know what to say. What Kia have been? Have they been sneaky, hiding this car on us? I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is clearly, you can tell that this is the important car for Kia. This really is, and it kind of makes sense, because if you're going up against the likes of the L-Rock, the E2008, a Jeep Avenger, all those cars, BYD Atto 3, you need to have something special, and the Nero, the electric Nero, is starting to show its age, and that has been a really successful car. But the EV3 has a massive task ahead of it, because it's essentially looking to replace two cars, the Nero and the Soul. I mean, granted, the Soul is a very niche, quirky car, but this has done an amazing job. So with my time in the EV3, what have been some of the highlights and some of the little niggles I need to let you guys know about? Well, I'll start with the niggles because they are very few and far between. As I mentioned earlier, I would like this kind of infotainment screen to be turned towards me, and also just a little bit of a revision to the touch sensitive buttons, because I have accidentally tapped them whilst I've been kind of going through the menus, although that could quite be a me problem rather than a you problem, but it is just something that I have come across. And then you have got a button on the right hand side of the steering wheel that you can have a kind of dedicated assignment to. So what you can do is have it to the kind of the driver assistance features. So if you want to turn off some of those bing zung bongs, like for example when you go a mile an hour over the speed limit, the lane keep assist, or the one that's been perhaps the most annoying that I've had to deal with, and definitely on a day like today when I'm looking at you as a camera, that's where it kind of shows itself up, is because I've got a little sensor here on the top of the steering column, and it monitors where my eyes are looking. So basically it's things like drowsiness and also paying attention. That's been the main kind of bing and bong that's been an intrusion whilst driving the EV3 this week. But you can press that button and it will take you into that menu. But I will say it's not as user-friendly as some rivals, and the rivals I mean are Volkswagen Group, because essentially they're now creating dedicated menus with little kind of on-off switches that is just readily available. And I first experienced that in the Audi Q6, where they had a dedicated button that brought it up on the screen. So I really do like that feature from Volkswagen Group, and I'd like to see Hyundai Group kind of tailor it into their EVs, just to make it that tiny bit user-friendly, but it is a little niggle. And then when it comes to highlights, very simple. The car. All round. The car has been a highlight. It's been a joy. Everything from the looks. I like the kind of revision of the Tiger grille. It's very subtle, but you can kind of see it there in the lip. You have got active aero. I didn't mention this earlier, in the front as well, to do some cooling for that motor, but it is quite nicely hidden away. The looks of the car, I do love this shale grey, but like I said, in regards to kind of recommendation, go for a GT line to get the sunset orange. And then just everything else. I like the interior mood lighting. I like the fact as well, actually, that you can customize it. So you can choose your own colors, but there are presets for the top layer of the dash and lower down. Not many manufacturers do it. It's only a tiny kind of aesthetic, but it's the little things that work really well. And yeah, I mean, this has just been an absolutely brilliant car, and to be honest, I think we should just go straight on to the conclusion. So what are my thoughts on the Kia EV3? Well, I asked one question at the beginning of this review. Is this car really that good to get the title of World Car of the Year 2025? The simple answer is yes. This is the complete package. This does everything it needs to do for the segment and for the customer, for the driver, for the passenger. It ticks every single box. Now, I know if you have watched it, I did do a review of the Hyundai Ioniq 5N, and I did say that was one of the best electric cars in the world right now. And that was in regards to performance. That was in regards to what you can do with an EV to give a pure, true, like, sporting feel to a car. Because being electric, you do find that there are detachments when it comes to the kind of feel and connection between you, the human, and the machine. But the EV3, Kia have done wonders with this car. As an overall package, I think it is close to perfection, to what you want from an electric vehicle, from a small family SUV. Because it's got the looks. It looks absolutely stunning. In my personal opinion, I know it is a bit of a Marmite car with its design, but personally, I really love the proportions. And I also actually like at the back, I get hints of the BMW i3. And if you remember when that came out, it was subject to so much criticism, but it's now become a bit of a cult car. And I think the EV3 is going to go that way. This is going to be noted down as just being one of those cars that set a benchmark. And that's what the EV3 is. It's a benchmark car. It's the best car in class. And I agree, it's the best car in the world for 2025. In terms of value for money, in terms of range, in terms of spec, in terms of space, creature comforts, in terms of sustainability, using the recycled materials for the interior, and also on the seats, if you go for the air spec, they are cloth, but they are recycled. So Kia, thinking about kind of the environment and all that, it all adds up together to create an outstanding package. And there's no ifs, there's no buts. You've got to have a look at this car. You have got to take a test drive in one. Because if you've driven other EVs and then you drive this last, you will forget them. You really will. And I say that having not driven probably half of the EVs in this segment. I have got one coming, which is probably one of the biggest rivals to this car. And it is a return of a brand that I've not had for a few years, and it is the Skoda Elroq. And that is classed as the EV3's biggest rival. So it'll be kind of exciting to see how that car kind of fares up to the EV3. But that car also needs to be pretty blooming special. Not just to beat the EV3, but to match it as well. Because this is, as I will say now, if I could, this is probably, I know I chop and change every so often, but in terms of realistically getting an EV3 or realistically buying a car for myself, I'd have this. And I'd probably have air trim with a larger battery. And I think I'd be very happy. And I'd have it in sunset orange as well, just because I love those kind of colours. Yeah. Bravo, Kia. Well done. Congratulations. Really, truly well deserved. You have made an absolutely phenomenal car. There is one massive problem, however, that stands in your way. You need to maintain this standard. You've got an EV4 coming and an EV5. They have to be as good, if not better than this from now on. So Kia, you've been told. You've made the best, and now you've got to make the rest even better. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my full review of the new Kia EV3 family SUV. As always, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notifications icon to let you know when I, Dave the Auto Bear, bring out a new video. Just going to drive past these horses now, so I don't want to disturb them. There we go. Now, if you've got any comments or questions about the EV3 and my time with it, please put them down in the comments section below. I will be honest, I will be truly gutted to hand this car back to Kia, because they have set the benchmark now. And I'm now kind of looking forward to see what Kia do moving forward, but also what other manufacturers do to try and beat this car. Heck, I'm even looking forward to seeing what Hyundai can do to try and beat this car, because this is truly something special. So I'm just going to enjoy driving this car for the rest of the day, but I hope you all have a wonderful day doing whatever it is you're doing, and I will catch you all in the next video. So take care everybody, and bye-bye.